Hi, my name is Dr. Carrie Demers, and I'm here to talk to you today about food. We all know that food is important. We know that we are what we eat. And you've probably heard studies about how healthy foods help prevent chronic diseases. But I'm not here today to talk to you about studies or numbers. I'm here really to talk about some simple principles that you can apply to your own eating and shopping to help you be as healthy as possible. So when I see patients in my office, I tell them three main things about food. And I'm going to talk to you about those today. So the first one is to eat close to earth, to eat whole foods. Ideally, we eat foods that come from the earth to us with very little, if any, processing. So those are the foods in the perimeter of your grocery store. The produce section, the meat and dairy section, the frozen foods, all mostly have come to you with very little processing. So they're just full of nutrients. They're enlivening. When I first started to study holistic medicine, my first teacher said, you eat to live, right? So you need to eat food that has life in it. So think about a fresh vegetable. Let's say broccoli. You have a stock of broccoli in your fridge and you forget about it for a week or two and it wilts in your fridge. But you put it in water and what happens? It perks back up. There's still a life in it. If I were to take the seed, grains and beans and sow them in a field and water them, they would grow into new plants. So there's a life force, there's a vitality in fresh food and whole beans and grains and vegetables that enliven us, that give us vitality. And you can add those things into your diet in really small ways, and it helps. So you could eat a salad a day, or you could have a piece of fresh fruit a day. So that's the first tenet, eat whole foods. The second principle is about paying attention. So you eat a meal and you notice how do you feel afterward? Right afterward, an hour later, 3 or 4 hours later, does that food sit well with you? Does it digest well? Does it enliven you? What's the effect of that food? Because if that food is nourishing you and satisfying you and making you feel good, then you're going to keep eating that food. But if that food really doesn't suit you and you feel lousy later, or you've eaten a pizza at night and you wake up with heartburn in the middle of the night, or you've drunk too much coffee and you can't sleep, or you just something about what you ate just doesn't sit well, it makes you feel nauseated or disturbs your bowel movements, then you might pause before you eat that again. So we pay attention. How does it feel to eat food that is easily digestible and therefore I feel well after it, or a food that sits in my stomach and clogs me up and hinders my feeling of vitality? Now, I don't want you to take this and feel guilty, because this is really just about noticing. You're a scientist, this is your laboratory, and you're doing experiments with food. Just notice which ones serve me, which ones don't serve me. And you can do other experiments. You could choose to adjust your diet in some way, where you give up, or you stop eating dairy, or you stop eating wheat, and notice how you feel. What changes happen because of that over the next 2 weeks. So be a scientist. Pay attention. And then the third principle is really about being kind to ourselves as opposed to being critical to ourselves. There's so many rules about food and what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat that people are anxious. People are worried about how they're eating. And sometimes it feels so complex, they just want to give up and just not try so hard. So both of those approaches don't get us where we want to be. So the idea is that you do the best you can. You make the best choices that you can to get whole foods into your diet, and then you bless it and eat it. You let the food that you've gathered for yourself be enough, be good, and let the goodness of that food nourish you. Even if the nutritional quality isn't perfect, let what is there nourish you. Or maybe it's just a food that you crave, a food you love, even though it's not especially nourishing or nutritious. let that nourish you too. I tell my kids 80% of the time, 75% of the time is all healthy foods. The other part is just entertainment. It's part of life. We need to enjoy our life. So if you love a snack food or a French fry or a milkshake, let yourself have it now and again and love it. Let it in to nourish you. You have a much better chance of having that food be well digested if you enjoy it while it's coming in, as opposed to thinking, oh my God, I shouldn't be eating this, right? This isn't good for me, right? Don't try to temper those thoughts. Let whatever choice you've made in to nourish you. So those are really the three main points. To the best of your ability, eat whole foods. Notice how the food you're choosing is affecting you. And then be kind. Let the choices that you've made in to nourish you, bless it and eat it.